I don't know about you, but I always liked the special star moves from Paper Mario, as they are very helpful while still being very different to standard items and moves. So today, I thought it would be fun to rate all of them. This list is based off how useful they are and how much star power they need. I will be counting the special moves from Paper Mario 64 and the Thousand Year Door, since those are the only two games in the Paper Mario series that contain these moves. Any moves from the special menu are on this list, so that way the focus command counts while the appeal move from Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door does not. And as a heads up, I used a real N64 to capture footage of Paper Mario 64. So with that said, let's get started. 17. Peach/Starbeam. I'm kind of disappointed by this move, to be honest, because it does nothing at all while still looking really intimidating. Like, all of these star spirits come together and create a huge vortex. You would think this would deal a lot of damage or something like that, but no, it just does nothing at all against standard enemies. The reason is that it is only used during the final battle against Bowser. In the final battle, you use Peach Beam, which is basically the same move, to remove his star invincibility shield. But since this was programmed to only work in this way, the Peach/Starbeam does nothing on normal enemies, deeming it completely useless. 16. Focus. So this one is one step above Peach/Starbeam, and that's for literally one reason. It actually does something. So focus is there to refill a bit of your star bar. And when I say a bit, I literally mean this much. Like, it's such a tiny bit that you literally don't have to use it and it will build up after time anyway. This is only like a slight boost, however it is better than Peach/Starbeam since you can opt it with badges, which makes it more powerful. 50. Refresh. Now we're making it to the actual Star Spirit moves. Starting with Refresh as the worst one. This Star Spirit refills 5 HP and 5 FP, and it also cures poison as a bonus. This is also the beginning Star Spirit of the game, so it only costs 1 star power, which is a plus. But on the other hand, there's just way better options for healing out there. Refilling 5 HP plus FP is pretty good at the beginning of the game, since you're pretty low level at best. But since the move never changes, that means that it becomes more useless every time you level up, until you eventually decide to never ever use it again. 14. Sweet Treat. This one is pretty similar to Refresh, except it's better. It's the first Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door move you'll unlock. And like Refresh, it only refills a small amount of your health bar. But since your partners also have an HP bar in this game, that means you can heal them too. What is interesting about this move is that it actually features a minigame. That's right, Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door introduced minigames to these star moves, instead of them just kind of happening. So now, you'll actually need to be good at the minigame to get the maximum potential out of this one. 13. Up and Away. This is once again a disappointing move, because for unlocking it so late into the game, it doesn't really do much of anything. Up and Away basically transforms every single enemy that you'll fight against into a star, which then flings off into the universe. First off, you don't get any star points at all, which could be bad in some circumstances, and secondly, it does basically nothing against bosses, since that would obviously defeat the challenge. Some other things that bring it down is that it costs 2 star power, and that it is actually unlocked so late into the game. 12. Showstopper. It's the same thing as Up and Away, and these two could be interchanged, but I decided to put Showstopper above Up and Away, and that's because of the minigame. This time around you'll have to mash A as fast as possible, and depending on how good you are in the minigame, there may be some enemies that you still have to fight after using this attack. Unlike Up and Away, which basically just ends the battle for you. This just makes things a little bit more interesting, but not by much. 11. Lullaby. I had a hard time deciding where to put this move, but I decided to put it under the worst ones. And that's because Lullaby's main gimmick is that the enemies now sleep. Assuming it works, of course. But there's the biggest problem of the move. Most enemies aren't really weak to Lullaby, not even speaking of the bosses. The only good time you could use this move against is Kenzie Cooper, since Kenzie Cooper has an 80% chance of locking it to sleep. So it's definitely useful there, but other times this is just not really that great. 10. Smooch. This one is fairly similar to Refresh, except it refills 20 HP and requires 3 star power than just 1. I think this is a fair trade-off, although you don't get any FP or anything on top of that. It's definitely way more useful than Refresh, seeing as you unlock it in Chapter 5, but to be honest, I would still use a regular item instead. 9. Sweet Feast. This is basically the sequel to Sweet Treat, except it costs 5 whopping star power. What the heck? But to be honest, I do kind of understand why they did this. Sweet Feast is basically a much stronger version, and you can actually get way more HP than you could before. Sometimes even more HP than Smooch, which is definitely saying much. It's the same minigame as before too, so you can basically just learn to be good at it and get all of those fancy refills. 8. Timeout. This is pretty similar to Lullaby, except that the status isn't sleep this time, but instead immobilized. This time it's actually against all enemies, and it works pretty well. That's because the enemies and bosses are generally weaker to this move. It does cost 2 star power, but if you actually get it to work, then it's actually really good. 7. Power Lift. This is one of the most interesting ideas for a Paper Mario move. Power Lift features a minigame in which you have to hit certain panels. These panels have an orange arrow signifying attack, as well as a blue arrow signifying defense. You basically have to get a bunch of these in a row in order to level up. But there are also poison panels which slow down your cursor if you touch them, so you gotta be careful. This one costs 3 star power, and it's honestly a really good idea to use this move, since it can raise attack and defense by quite a bit. 6. Clock Out. It's the same as Timeout, except it has a better chance of working, and it actually presents in a pretty funny minigame as well. The minigame is basically mashing buttons to grow a gigantic bomb, which you then have to throw to 3 different targets. Which means this bomb can actually land on yourself, the audience, or your enemy. This is actually a really good idea, as it can completely flip the game on its side if you don't really know what you're doing. 5. Earth Tremor. This is a very clean move that I basically use every single time that I replay Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. The objective is basically to grow a star by hitting the A button at the correct times. If you mess up, the star can't grow as big and can't cause as much tremor as a bigger star could do. If you manage to grow all the way to the big size, then it will do a great amount of tremor, and it will actually damage your opponents pretty well too. And this is actually really interesting because flying enemies can only be knocked out if you get to a certain level with this move. This one also only costs 2 star power, which is pretty low considering the amount of damage it can do. 4. Starstorm. I'm putting this one above Earth Tremor, and that's simply because the damage is much cleaner and more even than usually. It basically attacks every enemy, and it's pretty similar to a shooting star item. However, a shooting star item only does 6 HP of damage. This move, however, does 7 to every single individual enemy. That's a pretty good move, I gotta say. What's great about this move is that it works every single time. It penetrates enemies' luck and defense, which is pretty cool. And it even only costs 2 star power, so that's another huge plus. 3. Art Attack. This might be the most creative star move the Paper Mario team has ever crafted. The objective for this one is to draw circles around the enemies. The larger the circle, the less the attack power. But if you focus on one single enemy and draw around them a couple of times, then you can get quite some really interesting damage in. Something interesting about this move is that the lines didn't actually show up in my footage. Maybe this is just Dolphin, I don't know. But like I said, if you only focus on one of these enemies, then you can get quite a lot of damage in on just one turn. But it also works on multiple enemies at once. 2. Chill Out. This is the best Paper Mario 64 move out of them all. This one basically weakens enemies' attack. Now, that alone sounds boring, but listen, it actually decreases enemies' attack by 3. Yes, that's a pretty big number if I do say so myself. And this attack actually lasts for a long amount of time. This is one of the most used moves when it comes to no damage challenges in Paper Mario. And it also only costs 2 star power, so yeah, there's that. And finally, number 1, Supernova. Now at the beginning I said that I would also rate the star moves depending on the star power, and this one takes 6 of them, which is pretty gross, but it doesn't really matter at this point, because this move actually deals 15 damage to every single individual enemy when done right. It is definitely the most powerful move in Paper Mario, at least the star moves. It does 15 damage to every single enemy, which is just really good. So yeah, even though it costs 6 SP, I would say that this is the best star move in the entire Paper Mario series. And there you have it, guys, that's all the star moves from Paper Mario rated. This was actually a lot more difficult to edit than I expected. If you like this episode, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and also consider subscribing. It takes a second for you and it helps me out a lot. I will do more of these ranking videos as well as different Mario videos. So if that's your thing, make sure to subscribe. And finally, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the video and what your personal favorite and least favorite Paper Mario star move is. So with that, thank you for watching, guys, and until next time.